Now, an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal by Jason Riley, African-American writer. He says it's not cops going out to brutalize young black men. That's not what's happening. The reason that more young black men are shot by law enforcement in America is because there's more confrontation. So there's more violence in the young male African American community. So the police have to be called to respond to that violence. Therefore, there's more killings. If you read Riley's column, it's based on logic, it's based on facts. I'm not African American, so I'm going to let Jason handle that. However, there is no doubt that all across the country, the police are being demonized. But one organization wants to stop that. It is the Heritage Action for America organization. And joining us now from Washington is Jessica Anderson. She is vice president of the HAA. And she has, her organization, putting up billboards, pro-police billboards, all over, actually in 3 large cities to start, Dallas, Atlanta, and New York. So Jessica, why are you doing this?
Well, you just hit it on the head. The American people want safety and security. We want a clear vision on how to quell the violence and restore the peace. So these billboards have a very clear message that says you cannot have peace without the police. So for the hundreds of millions of Americans just like me who rely on the police to keep our neighborhoods safe, to respond when there's danger, it's been completely surreal this year to see politicians, pundits, the media declare that the real instigators of violence are the police and not gangs or rioters. And so we want to push back against that. And I think these billboards do it in a meaningful way at the most local level.
All right, so the billboards read, "No police, no peace." That's going to be obviously by the far left considered a challenge to them. No justice, no peace. That's what they say. Now, your city, Washington, is out of control on the violence level, is it not?
It is as well. We thought about putting one here in Washington, but we chose Times Square, we chose Dallas, we chose Atlanta because we looked at exactly the murder rates. Murders are up nearly 50% in New York. Murder rate in Atlanta is up nearly 150% since the protests have started. And Dallas, a place that, so many would consider safe and secure, it's on the way to hitting the highest murder rate in over a decade. And so these are the places that need law enforcement. And we want law enforcement to know that behind them stand millions of Americans that support them, want them to be allowed to do their job to keep us safe and secure.
Why do you think the murder rate, the other crimes are staying pretty stagnant according to the FBI? Burglaries and robberies and muggings, and that's because there's not that many opportunities in the age of COVID, that a lot of people are not out on the streets, they're home, can't break into the homes as easy when people are home. That's why the crime rate hasn't risen in those areas. But why do you think that violent crime, particularly murder, is on the rise everywhere?
Well, I think you're seeing society, nothing's happening really in a vacuum right now. You've got everyone frustrated that we're not back at school, that businesses aren't yet open. They're taking to the streets. They see businesses that are being shut down, locked out, and the atrocities of murder are really allowed to run unchecked in places where the police aren't allowed to do their jobs. I mean, you look at something as horrific as what happened over this weekend when a gunman shot 2 deputies sitting in their vehicle. Now, thank God they've recovered. They haven't been killed. But, I looked at that and I saw a direct assault on law and order itself. And this is a response to the rhetoric of the left, which has dehumanized and demonized police officers. And this is a dangerous trend for the United States to take when more and more leaders pretend that it's okay to riot, to burn buildings, to assault officers. It makes violent crime and violence worse. And in many ways, the police not being allowed to do their jobs, it just continues to rise.
Okay, I see it a bit differently, and I want you to react to my point of view and why murder is rising. Most of the murders are gang related in the big cities. They're drug gangs, armed. They kill each other. They kill innocent bystanders. And now, as you pointed out, in Los Angeles, somebody tried to assassinate 2 sheriff's deputies. Those people used to be under pressure. Here in New York, I'll give you an example, by the street crimes unit. undercover detectives who went into the drug-ridden neighborhoods, targeted the gang members before they could shoot anybody. So it's a felony to carry an unlicensed firearm in New York City. They thought somebody had a firearm, they'd arrest them. If they indeed did, they would be sentenced to hard time. They stopped the crimes, and the drug gangs were less likely to carry the guns on the streets because they knew the street crime unit would get them. Now, Mayor de Blasio, the communist mayor of New York, disbanded the street crimes unit, and shamefully, the police commissioner, Dermot Shea, went along with it. Since that time, there has been violence all over the city by these drug gangs. Chicago never controlled the drug gangs, ever. Rahm Emanuel for 8 years, now Lori Lightfoot. Forget it. They're not going to control, and the drug gangs know that in Chicago. They know they can take the guns out, drive by, and use them because nobody's going to stop them. In New York, they did stop them until de Blasio disbanded the unit for no reason at all. So now we have insane politics causing the rise in violent crime in our nation's cities. That's my analysis. And you say?
I think we're saying similar things, which is that when police and law enforcement aren't allowed to do their job, people's lives are lost. And so your argument that they got, the police forces got to these violent offenders before they were actually violent goes back to the whole argument that we're making, which is that police should be allowed to keep our neighborhoods safe and secure and use any means to do that, whether it's precipitatory or it's actually on the ground as this violence is happening, and to quell it and to push back on it. And I think, this brings up a larger conversation that America is having of, do you redirect funds in the police departments? Do you reimagine or retool police forces? When I hear that, I hear examples of what you just described in New York, which basically limits the ability for officers to do their job, and they're spending more time batting cleanup as opposed to getting ahead of the curve when it comes to this violence.
It's insane to cut police budgets, but that's what the far left wants. They don't believe criminals should be punished. They believe that it's society's fault that you join a drug gang and sell narcotics and shoot people. That's what they believe. Hey, Jessica, thanks very much. Let us know how your campaign goes, and if there's any resistance to it by the cities that you have the posters in. Thank you.
Bill O'Reilly is back on TV and only on The First. No Spin News, every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on The First.